Hi, this is Joni Martinez, and welcome to the first episode of Inside Jet Set. So, this is a podcast that I decided to do. It's a companion series to the book series that I am still in the middle of writing, that I started at the beginning of the pandemic. And I have it published online, and I've decided to just do this podcast because it was just a great way to market the show, to market the book, market my show, and also just for those that are still haven't gotten around to reading it, I can give you guys sort of like a primer or like a reason to get into it, or if you have been reading, thank you so much for that. I'm also going to tell you guys about my thought process, songs that were playing in my head. I'm not going to tell you who the characters are based on, but I can tell you just how biographical and true some parts are, but I'm not going to expose it all. I don't want to ruin the magic for anybody. And that's pretty much what this podcast is going to be. It's pretty freewheeling. And with me, I actually have one of my favorite people in the world, my homegirl, Dee Dee. Girl, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for deciding to do this, because some people are very shy. Like I know I get readers, but not many people actually want to come forward and just, they're always afraid that I'll take criticism or feedback wrong. And I really don't. I mean, this is just a growth and learning process. But the reason why I asked you to do this is because you are a super fan of the book and you've been reading it and you've been talking about it. And I really just appreciate that. And I wanted to have you here because, I'm pretty sure like you've had some questions about the book. And if you've had questions, I mean, other people have had questions. So, I'm just going to throw it to you for a bit and feel free to just, ask me whatever. Well, first I should just tell you, like, can you just tell the audience, like those that are listening, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and, your overall thoughts on the book, the series so far?
Well, okay. You said you started working on this book during the pandemic, and I remembered starting to read volume 1. You're now on volume 4.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to let you guys know, really check it out because it's good. But it's hard to put down. I'll tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely hard to put down. There's a lot that happens in the story that I, as a reader, look into, and I'm just like, it transports me straight into the story, into the settings, the environments. I've said that I've seen myself in several of your characters because it's just like it pulls. So in my mind, I think my biggest question overall is just like, where did the inspiration really come from to write this particular story about a young Black girl going to school, growing up, and going to high school in Brooklyn in the late 90s, which is a period that I could resonate with. So, so it's just like, where did the inspiration come from?
Well, you were part of the inspiration because we grew up together, and most of the inspiration just basically came from just this. It's mostly about my life. It's somewhat biographical, but not autobiographical. Like there are some licenses that I do take with it, and I was just inspired because back in the day, because I basically started writing the story maybe about in 2010 or so. And I was just going to write a very flat, straight up, like, this is what happened to me. And then life happened. And then a whole bunch of stuff happened. Went back to school, rediscovered some other things. And then the pandemic hit. And I was just going through my hard drives. And I found this memoir that I was writing. And there were parts of it that I liked. There were other parts that I really liked. And I was thinking about, I was like, you know what? I actually want to do something different, and I want to keep it going. So I just edited the parts that I had, and then I just kept writing. And I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing. And then as I was writing, I started to remember certain people that I went to school with. So I started to add them. And then I thought about people that I know in my life, and I started to write about them. And then over time, you know, like all the memories of back in the day came back. You know, this was part therapy, and it was also a part love letter, because I wanted to do something celebratory. Because I was first inspired to actually do something like this back in 2019. I had done a one-off radio show for Montez Radio. And it was basically kind of like me doing a radio show to my younger self. So I said to myself, "Dear Joanne, in 1999, it's been 20 years. And this is what I would love to tell you. This is what happens. You're going to go through some really tough issues in your life. And this is how you got through it. And this is what you should keep in mind. I can't tell you what happens to you, but I can tell you how to get through it." So going off of that, I just decided to just keep doing it like that. And then from there, Jet Set just took on a life of its own, literally. I know it's a cliche to say that, but it just went off and became its own piece of work. And it's not so much that I was speaking to it and I was writing it. It was writing back to me. It was telling me what it wanted to tell me. And I was about maybe 200, 300, 400, 500, 600 pages in before I was like, maybe I should just publish this right now. Because, you know, it's like you really can't ask somebody, "Hey, can you read 600 pages of this and tell me what you think?" You can't really do that. I don't care if there was a lockdown. You can't do that. So what I did was I decided to just publish it online. And I decided to just do it by chapters, push it out, organize it, proofread, edit. And then from there, you know, volume 1 became volume 2, became volume 3, 4. And then I mapped it out. And I said to myself, okay, so this could be a thing. And then somebody else who was reading it, they said, like, this is a very important story to tell. And there are girls that can read this in 2021 that can read this and say, yeah, this is what's happening to me and I can relate to this. Even though it was 20 years ago, I can see things don't change. Everything just recycles. The only thing that changes is the calendar, but the themes stay the same. And I think technology also changes as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so it's basically about this. It's about this girl who's of Haitian descent. You know, she's first generation Haitian. So basically, she has so many hats to wear because, you know, when she's at home, it's a household with Haitians. No English is spoken in the house, and you have all those. What do you call those? You have all those traditions and ideals and all that other stuff to deal with. However, when she's out in school, she has to deal with a whole other animal, which is basically growing up in New York, growing up in America in that time period. And the reason why I chose the late 90s and the early 2000s, not because I grew up in that era, but mostly because I wanted to capture the simplicity of first generation technology, where it wasn't so much about, you know, social media and the smartphone and all this other stuff. You know, things were still pretty simple, and you know, we didn't have all of the stuff that we have now, because when you look at some of the themes that she's dealing with, which is like self-image and skincare and fashion, you know, if you said it in 2021, you know, everything is so easy and accessible. It would just make no sense to just keep it going. It would just make no sense. It'd be a short story and everything would be done. Like, she has to what I call, she has to suffer a little bit for it in order to that. And with some suffering comes growth. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know, like, ask me some questions. Like you asked me that.
I mean, well, no, because like I asked for the inspiration because that was important to me. And again, it's not so much about wanting to know like who's this character based on or where did this come from.
Yeah. So
it took me like as a reader, it took me back to that time period. And I had to kind of like dig deep into my somewhat repressed memories of high school and being a teenager and, you know, all the changes that come associated with being a teenager and adolescence. And it's just like, wow, it's like taking a walk down memory lane, but it wasn't a walk you planned to take.
It's a painful walk. And there are parts that just, they suck. I'm not going to lie to you. It was a really painful experience in some parts to me. I actually did find myself actually crying during times I was writing because like a lot of those like really bad feelings started to come back. But when I'd finish it, I would just feel like cathartic about it because it's like, oh, look, I can change my past about it. And,
right.
Yeah. And, you know, it was like lately, you know, like there had been some static with like along with the praise that I get, you know, sometimes you also get like a couple of people that just want to be like, why did you do this? This is not, you know, like you got to get over, you got to get through this. It's like, well, this is how you get through it by writing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, is it because, you know, it's one of those things. It's one of those things. It's like sometimes you have to suffer through it one more time and even put it to paper or put it in a medium so that you can get through it. It has to be out. It has to be out of the head. It has to be out of your mind and somewhere into the ether for you to fully let go of it. And, you know, some people would understand that. And then other people are just like, oh, you just need to stop or you just need to calm down or something. So, yeah.
Yeah. One thing I also want to give you props for is the language. Yeah, the language and dialogue, especially in volume 1, because like I said, it takes me down this trip, this nostalgia in a sense, and you could kind of remember some of the lingo. And it's not necessarily like it's all about the slang or the lingo, but it's just like descriptions, conversations, the things that I remember being a teenager, conversations I had, conversations I heard, things that would like you weren't intentionally eavesdropping on, but you know, would just happen. Like when you're walking down the hallway and somebody just says something real random, you turn around like, what? I was like, oh yeah, I got bio in like 5 minutes, so I don't got time to investigate, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But no, I love the language of it because it's like it takes, like I said, it takes me back to that time period, but also takes me back to being a teenager. And there were a couple of times in volume 1 where I was reading chapters and I was like, oh damn, I hope they graduate or I hope they pass.
Please.
I was like, are they going to class enough? Like, what's going on here? Is there a grading? Is there a grading curve in this class? Like,
there's grading curves in this school.
Like, how they let you in this school? I'm not gonna lie. You had 1 or 2 characters I legit was reading, and I was like, yo, how did they let you in here, fam?
Oh, okay. So
is this like a mercy admittance? What admission? What?
Well, you could talk about the characters because just in case you haven't known, like all the names have been changed to protect the guilty and the innocent. So I'll just say that right now. So you feel free to talk about, like, we could just talk about the characterization right now because you're talking about that. So the main protagonist is Bridget Littlejohn, who is a version of me, but she is not me. People keep thinking it is me, but it is a version of me. It is who I probably should have been, but I wasn't. And it's kind of funny because when you first meet her, you know, it's like they make fun of her. When you first meet her in the book, she's kind of like, she tells you who she is. She's like, look, okay, there are things about me that, you know, people just don't like. People just don't like me as a person because, you know, either they're very shallow or they just don't know anybody like me or they feel like I'm an easy mark. when I say I'm talking about Bridget as in I, not me as in I. But yeah, when you first meet Bridget, she has like crazy acne. She has natural hair, and she's on the skinny side. And the thing is, she kind of retreats into this world of television and cable TV and music videos and the radio. Those are her friends. She has a couple of friends. Like when you meet her in the book, there are a couple of friends, but her retreat is within her bedroom. So that's that. So that was that one. Then and how you meet her is basically when you open up the first chapter, it opens up in this summer school program that she's in, and it's called the Bridge Program, which is a true thing, which was a thing back in the school, because it was a transitionary period, because you have a bunch of kids leaving the 8th grade and junior high, and they're heading into high school, which is a whole other world. Not to quote my favorite TV show, A Different World, but it was. And you start to meet her. You meet her in her world, You know that she likes to write, and like she's very imaginative, and she loves a good TV show. And you also start to meet the people that she's around. So of course you have like the typical bullies, who basically she's an easy mark. In like a world where every girl is wearing her hair relaxed and their skin is clear, and they're basically of normal body frame. You have this skinny, pimply-faced girl with natural hair, which I know, like, you're probably listening now and you're like, well, natural hair is fine. It wasn't fine back then. D, you could probably vouch for this, right? You could not afford to not have natural hair back then. It was just not a thing. And it was it's a traumatizing era. And one of the things that was really interesting when people read that, it's like, I can't believe that this was really a thing. People really did feel that way about natural hair. It's like, yes, that was a thing. You just could not walk around with natural hair because the European beauty standards, it meant that it looked like your parents didn't care. It looked unkempt. It looked like, your family they just didn't care about you. And the truth is, they just wanted to just keep you, back then, natural hair in some cultures was considered a sign of youth, keep you as a kid, like they took the effort to do your hair and, with all that hair care and stuff. And usually in our culture, getting a relaxer was a rite of passage in black hair, in young girl black hair. It's a rite of passage to get your hair relaxed. It means you're growing up into a young woman. And I don't know how other cultures do it, but I know it's a sign of like early adulthood. But, so that's how you meet her. And so there was that. Also, other characters you meet her main enemy, Helena, who Helena is a very polarizing figure in the book. But then you also meet her friends Bee and Luna, who take up for her, and then from there you start to meet other people. You start to meet and then those relationships starts to happen. But as we go into this conversation, we'll of course go further into that. So I mean, D, what you got for me? Like that's that when you're meeting it.
Well, I think that's a good segue into the next question that I had, because I wanted to ask you about like the friendships that are established in this book. See, because when we first meet Bridget, and she just graduated junior high school, so now she's about to go into high school. When she starts off, there are these two girls that she's like quote unquote friends with. Their names are Erica and Victoria.
Right.
Now, she went to junior high with them. Well, but it wasn't like they were besties in junior high. They just knew each other, probably in passing, I'm assuming, right?
Right. You know, they have
Right.
different homerooms, sat in different tables at lunch.
Right.
Yeah, different
But
cliques. Yeah.
y'all have in common that y'all went to the same junior high school, so that's why you think, oh, okay, we're gonna be friends. But they don't exactly seem like friends to her.
No.
And then it's not until she meets the other two girls, B and Luna,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like you see the opposite, you see the difference. Something I wanted to ask is like, again, I know there's some inspiration from real life regarding this, but how was it for you as a writer to try to develop these friendships from the beginning stages to where they might be now? Like, in a way, what would you say was the hardest part about writing someone like Erica and Victoria and the way they treated Bridget versus some people like B and Luna or any other friends that Bridget makes in the beginning of her freshman year?
It's kind of ironic in that when you're writing about people that are friends, true blue friends, people think, oh, it's easy to do that. I mean, all you gotta do is just write about all the great times they had. And it's hard to write about enemies because, how deep do you have to get into somebody's psyche for them to be so mean? I found the opposite. I found it was a lot easier to write about how Erica and Victoria treated Bridget because I'm not a sociopath at heart, but I did have to kind of tap into that. And one of the things was like I said, sometimes you have to tap into trauma, and you have to figure out not only the trauma that the victim is facing, but you have to kind of tap into the psyche of the bully themselves. So of course, you think about movies like Mean Girls and Heathers, and you start watching documentaries about serial killers and stuff like that, and you start to think about psyches. So you got to start thinking about their thought process and just what makes this person, what makes Bridget such an easy mark, and what makes it that makes Bridget so insignificant. So basically, when you're reading about them in the book, when you're reading about them early in the book, Victoria and Erica and Bridget, they basically all go to school together. They commute to school together, which is not a thing you hear about in other states, but in New York, it's a thing. You commute to school. And there are different ways to get there. And it just so happens that Victoria and Erica, they would just go off and just leave. They would just get off the bus. So they could just be having like a whole conversation. Like they'd have small talk with her. And then next thing you know, poof, they're gone. Poof, they just jump off the bus. They don't tell Bridget where they're going. They don't do anything. They just up and leave her. And it becomes a habit to the point that they consider her so small that they don't even give her the satisfaction of of just a simple, okay, we're going to go now. Bye. You don't even do that. You just abandon her because it's just that easy. And it was very easy to write that part. Like I had no issues with that. Like I tapped into that. I thought about being a Heather and I said, like, what would a Heather do? How would a Heather do this? And it just came like clockwork because also, that's what kind of happened to me as well. So, you just do that. But writing B and Luna, writing that friendship was so hard because I know how to be a good friend. I like to think I know how to be a good friend. And, you have to think about like, okay, so at this core, what do these two girls, B and Luna, what's at stake to be affiliated with Jet? Because when you look at Erica and Victoria, when they're friend, they don't consider Jet a person at all on the outset. They just don't. Meanwhile, and they realize that they have nothing to lose. Like if Jet just decides, I don't want to be your friend anymore, what's it to them? They don't give two craps. But if it's B and Luna, it's like, okay, so what is it about her that hurt, like that makes it so easy to hurt her? Like, why is it so? I think that's like the question of the year. That's the whole question of this book. Why is it so easy? What about Bridget is so easy to just hurt, inflict pain on? Like, why is that without question? Like, it's almost like second nature to do that to somebody like her. B and Luna are probably like, we got to get to know this girl, because why is it that everybody within her circle, why do they do that to her? Like, is she that horrible? And when they get to know her, they probably realize, you know what? There's nothing wrong with her. And I think that's the thing that people just don't understand. It's like they see her and it's like there's nothing intrinsically wrong with her. I mean, she's an okay person. And that's the hardest part to write, because because one of the things that I had an issue with writing their friendship is I didn't want to make it so that Jet was completely reliant on their friendship. And I didn't want to make their friendship seem transactional or one way or kind of like this biggest act of sympathy. It should genuinely be that if given the opportunity, the three of them can be friends and they have this bond and they can actually synergize very well with it. You know, it's like because they all stand to gain, and they all stand to gain something out of it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, because, you know, especially for being Luna, you could say it started off as a curiosity, like, yo, why everybody keep coming for her like that? What's up with her? And then the curiosity eventually builds into an interest. I want to know, like, even though it's not mentioned directly in the book, like, you as the author, it's like, how would it look for, you have Victoria and Erica who have their dynamic with Bridget, and to see Bridget's dynamic change when she's around B and Luna and other people. Like, something I've always wondered, not necessarily, you know, because of the book, but also in general, is like, when you're used to a person a certain way and you see them act differently with others, but you see them in a way almost shine with others, how would that make you feel? Does that make you feel smaller? Does that make you feel bigger? Well, does that make you feel like, oh, this person's not real, this person's fake because, like, they don't do this with me? But then it's like, do you also think about what you bring to the situation to bring this side of that person out? Does that make any sense?
No, it makes sense.
If I went off the deep end, let me know.
No. It makes sense, because, like, I had to actually sit down and think about it. And again, you have to get into the psychology of the bully. Like, what? Like, okay, so, you know, like, I guess the idea is so Erica and Victoria and probably Helena and Khalil, you know, these four bullies, they probably think like she's just so insignificant overall that we could just keep picking at her. And it's kind of like that whole idea of throwing dirt on dirt. And she's the easy mark. We could just do whatever we want. We could say whatever she's not going to fight back. And she's not much to look at. She's not much of a person. And, you know, like, this is one of the things that, you know, like, a lot of people are gravitating towards, like, when they read this section of the series, where it's like, what gives people this kind of power, or what makes them think this is what angers them? It's like, how are people this cruel? And the truth is, people are that cruel. And you know, it just so happens that we're giving it a name, and we're being aware of it. I'm making you cognizant of it. And I forgot the rest of the question. What was the rest of the question?
Well, no, you answered it essentially.
Yeah.
Like, you answered it essentially, because it's like there's no real, like, right. I mean, for me, I would say there's no real right or wrong answer.
Right, there's no rhyme or reason for it. It's not that they're bitter, it's not that they're angry. It's just that it's like, well, it's just easy to just crack on her because it's something to do. Like, you know, it's like and it's like, it's not even a challenge, which goes to show you how it is. It's like, because when you meet Bridget in later chapters, she does have a smart mouth. Like if you the first time she actually has an entire conversation with this other character, Sylvester, it's like they have this really crazy banter among them, and it catches people off guard, and they never know what to do, which is why when Bridget says something off the cuff, the first thought in her head is like, oh my God, I'm gonna get punched in the face. And the truth is, like, she disarms people without realizing it. And that's one of the things that attracts B and Luna. And they're like, okay, so we know that when she can fight back, she can't fight back physically, but she can fight back verbally, to the point where they'll just call her, oh, it's like, oh, you think you're all that? You're so stupid. Like, why? Like, oh, look at your answer. And B and Luna are probably like, you know what? She's smart. And that's very hard. Like, being a smart ass is, it's not even like a horrible thing. It's not a horrible thing. It does but sometimes you have to have like the physical, you have to be able to like back that up physically, because some people, they don't take kindly to insults and words and wit, and they fight it back with violence. So B and Luna, they kind of jump in and they become like her protectors and enforcers. It's like, don't worry, we got your back. Say what you got to say, but we got you. And you see that throughout the book. They'll try to come for her, and B and Luna will usually just say something, or it could even be Hill, or it could even be Sylvester. It's like, look, what you're not going to do. They have this very thing. It's like, what you're not going to do is, and, that's how it works out. But you have to read the novel to understand the dynamics of it. And what kind of makes it interesting is people are very hurtful, and I think this pandemic has just taught you just how insensitive people can be. And you don't know if it's a defense mechanism, because you would think that maybe it's a defense mechanism in some, but in others it could just be like who hurt you? It's always like who hurt you? Hurt people. And it's like, who hurt you to make it that you can hurt somebody else? That's like the running theme of this book. Who hurt you? We could like subtitle it, who hurt you?
Like that scene from Family Guy where Peter's listening to the Lionel Richie CD. He's like, who hurt you? Who hurt you? Like, yes, no, for real. Because it's so crazy too. Like, that time period also, there were a lot of things that we can look at now, especially as adults, because I'm an adult, I can admit that.
Yes.
But there are things that we can look at now as adults that when we go back in time, we're like, if we had known what this was called, we probably could have taken care of it, or we probably could have dealt with it a lot sooner, instead of waiting for like years later to go through stuff or whatever. But, sometimes things happen the way they happen for a reason, in a way.
Right.
Cosmos are weird. But aside from that, though, some of the other characters in your book, I'm like really taken and drawn to. There's a character named Hugo.
Oh, yes, Hugo.
Yes, Hugo, I understand, was Bridget's first crush when she got to Williamsburg.
Right. Oh, my God. Hugo is based on an actual person. I just won't reveal who that person is. But, like, in the book, they're called the Three. So it's basically like these three boys that are in addition to these girls. So they're upperclassmen. Two of them are, when you meet them in the book, two of them are in 11th grade and one's in 10th. And they actually create a bond in the very first in the second chapter. Is it the first chapter or the second chapter? What is it called? Just Another Girl on the Joe Faz. And in case you don't know, here in New York, Joe Faz is a school bus company. If you hang around Brooklyn long enough, you'll see a Joe Faz school bus. It's one of the largest bus companies in the city. And, they kind of bond over this. They go on this trip to the Museum of Natural History, which is a real thing, which is a real trip that I did go on. And this was probably, now that I'm talking about me, this is where I realized that people in both the classes didn't like me. And I started to understand, like, oh, okay, so I never really left junior high. people are just dicks all over the place, no matter where you are in this city. I could travel as far up north as Williamsburg, Brooklyn. People still treat me like crap. Got it. So, but that's neither here nor there. I'm working on it. God ain't through with me. That's why I'm writing this book. All right. By the end of this series, I will be fully cured and exorcised of all my demons or whatever.
Wow.
And it didn't cost me, and I didn't have to really sit through therapy because, like an hour a week is just not enough.
So you're saying that the secret is, instead of going to therapy, just write out your experiences and change the names of characters?
Pretty much. I mean, like, how do you think Freaks and Geeks started? I don't. Okay.
No, that's true. And for all we know, maybe J.K. Rowling was trying to tell us something else with Harry Potter, but we just interpreted it wrong.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows? That's pretty much that's the name of the game. Who knows? So, so Hugo, what's his last name? Oh my God, I have so many characters.
I think Torres was his last name.
Yeah. So you have Hugo Torres, and you also have Elton Hickson, who is a significant part of the series. Both of these boys are significant in the series. And what happens is, like, they have a bonding experience in the basement. Where was the gem room at the Museum of Natural History? Remember the gem room? Everybody in New York has gone to the Museum of Natural History as a field trip, and you always go to the gem room. Wasn't it like in the basement or something?
Yeah, I think so, because I know you had to go down a lower level to get to it.
Yeah, and it was like this big gray carpeted room, and it was like lit. It was like lit with these. And everywhere was a gem, like just these big, beautiful rocks, like of every single gemstone. And you're like, so like they kind of bond over that. It's like, oh man, think of all the money in this room. We should come back. And then it's like they sit there and they actually think up an entire heist idea, kind of like an Ocean's 11 thing. And of course, for every time, and this is how they bond. This is how the group bonds, because they meet Hill and they all have like their little parts. And then here comes, a bully talking about, y'all are weird. And it's like, okay, so you guys get none of the money. One of them says, you get none of the money. As a matter of fact, we're just going to shut up now because you're probably going to be the one to tell everybody. You're going to narc us to the cops. So that's, yeah. So you get none of the cut. So, and this is the nature, this is the playfulness of the group. That's what bonds them together. Because that's another thing about Bridget. Bridget is a very playful person. And what happens is, a lot of people just don't want to understand that about her. They don't want to play. Oh, it's like, oh my God, like, I don't like you. And it's like in the third. And she meets people that will want to play along. And because, sometimes you want to be silly, and sometimes you want to joke around, and sometimes you want to have the imagination because everybody else is just so serious. And that could just be another reason why they just don't enjoy her company, because she can't be who she is. You know what I mean? So, yeah, you mentioned Hugo. So Hugo is like this. It's her first crush. Like, this is the first guy that she sees on campus. And she's totally enamored with him. I mean, like back then, Bridget has never seen very good looking guys in person before. So imagine she grew up in Flatbush, Brooklyn, very West Indian, where there may be like one or two boys in class that are cute, or one or two boys in your school that are considered attractive. And then she goes to Williamsburg, a school that has a very heavy Latino population. And, I'm going to tell you right now, man, like Puerto Rico, the island of Puerto Rico produces some very, very, very attractive men. I'm not lying. I married one. Okay. I'm like, and that is the experience I had. I was like, when you see Bridget's hormones just go nuts. She actually even explains it in the very first chapter. Let me see what she says in the first chapter. Let me see if I could dig it up. One of my favorite lines that I wrote, I can't find it. Let's see. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it. I don't. She says like, oh, here we go. I was 14, stuck in a 12-year-old's body with the boobs of a 20-year-old and maybe, just maybe, the sex drive of a 21-year-old. Seriously, I think about sex a lot. Not so much the act, but what leads to it. So what she's trying to tell you is that like the hormones are raging, but she can't even explain that. So imagine somebody like her who, you know, she's repressed in so many ways because of the culture at home. And, you know, she's not really allowed to express herself at school, and she doesn't have anybody that she's comfortable with. And I think one of the early themes about this is of this whole like series is just Bridget's discomfort with herself. And it was one of the things that that made me really, when I was writing this part of the series, it was a very challenge for me, because I was like, I remember that, you know, discomfort and that oppression and how it was very hard to just express yourself. Like, it was like nothing was around. You had no resources, no outlets, none of that stuff. So, you know, so for a minute, this is where I am Bridget when I'm writing that. And this was very true for me. Like, this was like, I on the outside, I was literally not much to look at. And on the inside, there was like a lot happening and I didn't know how to push it out. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Anything? Yeah.
One last thing I gotta ask, because how book one ends, or volume one, I should say, how it ends, and then, you know, again, I've read volumes 2, 3, and I'm on 4 now, and I gotta say, it's like as the books progress, the story just gets more and more interesting. Mm-hmm. But one thing I have to say is, even though Bridget's libido is like all over the place at the beginning, especially when she enters Williamsburg High, I kind of feel like, and again, this is just me as a reader, I feel like we start to see who Bridget is. You know, because again, yes, there's bullying, yes, there's, you know, all those antics and stuff like that, but we kind of start to see who Bridget is. And it's almost like you're taking us on this trip where we get to walk the same path as Bridget. So we'll take the same steps, we'll make the same stumbles and falls, and then we'll catch ourselves and come right back up. Yeah. And I think it's cool that, you know, her friends, guys, if you read this, I have to recommend that the most important chapter for volume 1, A Clique, is the coffee shop oath.
Oh yeah. Like that.
You have to read it. I highly recommend it. But overall, I just love that chapter because I feel like it sets such a precedent tone for the story and where it goes. Mm-hmm. Like what happens there when they all get together. And then from that moment, basically from that field trip and then onward.
Is it your favorite? Is it your favorite chapter?
It's one of my favorites. It's, to me, like the most important. Mm-hmm. So it's like for anybody who's reading or wants to read this book, it's like you have to start with, well, not start with, but you have to make sure you read Coffee Shop Oath.
Because it's a seminal chapter. Because within it expresses a lot. Like there's a lot that happens. It's a little on the long side. It runs at 3,500 words, but yeah, it's a very seminal chapter because in it the discomfort that Bridget's always had, it starts to fade out, and also it does set the precedent. You start to see who B is, and the place that B is about to take on within the group. Because, you know, she does set herself up to be the enforcer in it. Especially towards the end when she says, like, okay, this is who we are. This is what we're going to do. This is the plan. So it's kind of like when you're watching, again, it's like Ocean's 11. It's like, this is the caper. And these are our roles. You do this, you're this, you're this. No, not you. You stay out. You are who we don't want you. We don't want this. This is what we want, So yeah, I actually do love the coffee shop oath, and the coffee shop oath comes up several times within the book itself, within this whole series itself. And it is, oh God, I just love that chapter. It's such a great chapter. It's a really, really great chapter. And I was actually quite cathartic when I wrote it, because it was like if you want to talk about a chapter of a thing that I wish happened in the book, which I will always talk about in this podcast, I always wanted like a coffee shop oath sort of moment in school. I kind of had that later in life, but I didn't have it in high school. And I feel like had I did, who knows? And people really do take to it. People really do take to the chapter. It's one of the most read chapters. And it's so small, but it's so big at the same time. Anything else? Because we gotta wrap this. We gotta wrap this up. We can't go too long.
No, that's it. Because now that, like I said, we're talking about it, and I get to ask these questions, which I'm so glad you were able to answer. Now I kind of want to reread volume 1.
Reread.
Kind of like reread to take notes before I move on to future chapters. Mm-hmm. Kind of like a little brush up. Like, oh, there's going to be a quiz on this, so let me start studying now. That kind of thing.
I got to be ready for
book club. But no, thank you so much for answering my questions. I love your book. You're my bestie, and I'm not just saying that because it's real talk. This is something that is necessary for the culture.
I should hope so.
That's something I don't say lightly, so.
Thank you. And you're not just
on that for real.
And you're not just saying, and I'm not paying you to say that. You're actually being for real.
Shit, if you was paying me, I probably would say something else. No, I'm being
What's
real.
What's your Cash App again? No, all right. So,
we'll talk after. No, I'm kidding.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm kidding.
I'm gonna. Okay. Oh my God. All right. So here's the thing, you guys. I gotta wrap this up. Thank you so much. This has been Inside the Set, basically a companion podcast for the book series. I am Joni, the author of it. I want to thank my girl D, the super fan, who's been like the biggest supporter of this project since the beginning. We're definitely going to do this again. Hopefully, we'll have a next episode, and we'll just keep talking about this series because there's a lot to cover. Like it's only 4 books, but there are a lot, and things are only going to get even deeper and juicier as we go. And there's going to be even more questions. So definitely tune in. The book is available for full consumption on Wattpad. It's even free, okay? Because I'm literally beta testing. It is free. Catch it while it's still, for free. I know people want to wait for the book to come out so they could read it. But if you can read it for free, read it for free. Just do that. So it's under Joe Aqua 85, and it's called The Jet Set. It's always featured and it's always prominent on the page. It ranks very high from time to time, so give me more reads, you guys. And you could also catch me on TikTok at Joni Aqua on TikTok and Facebook and Twitter and IG, where I do promote the book and this show. So thank you so much for listening, D. Thank you again for, doing this for me. This solid, girl. Thank you. And I will definitely see you guys on the next episode of Inside the Set. Thank you. This has been Joni, and we're out. Happy reading.